Are you thinking about starting a photography business or just interested in getting into photography? I'm going to share with you 3 important steps that you need to know before you get started. Hi, I'm Lee Love. If this is your first time here, this is where you're going to learn tips, tools, and techniques on how to run a successful video or photography business. Okay, tip number 1. The first thing is shoot what you know. Now, this may seem obvious to a lot of people, but believe me, it's not. It's most important that you learn what you love to photograph. I enjoy learning about other people's photography. I'll always ask them what kind of stuff they like to photograph, that type of thing. And when it's a new photographer, the most common answer I get is, I like to shoot everything. Well, you can't learn to shoot everything. You got to specialize on something. You have to ask yourself the question, what am I willing to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go photograph? If you don't mind doing that, then that's truly your passion and that's something that you know. But the other thing is you want to start with a subject matter that you know more about than maybe the next person. So for example, here's a quick story. I get hired a lot to do teaching on lighting, Photoshop, and Lightroom. I was doing some lighting, one-on-one training for a woman that does newborns. And what I discovered was I don't know much about how to photograph newborns. She knew way more than I did about photographing newborns. I could teach her how to do the lighting, how to do the setup, and how to get the best images using the lighting equipment that she had, but she knew more about how to photograph newborns than I did. So that's why you want to start with something that you know. Okay, tip number 2. Shoot, shoot, shoot. Now this requires a little bit of explanation. I'm not suggesting you just go out and spray and pray and hope to get shoot 1,000 pictures and hope to get 1 or 2 keepers. What I'm suggesting is that you find your topic, that's your favorite topic, and you shoot that topic as often as possible over and over and over again. And try and pull everything out of that subject that you can. Volunteer, find opportunities where other people are working, or their church or something like that, where hopefully it's your favorite topic, but if not, you want to find someplace you can shoot and just keep shooting and shooting. It's like having a free studio when you think about it. Now, this does bring up the topic of shooting for free, and I'll cover that in much more depth in another video, but I'm not a big fan of shooting for free, except in a situation like this, you're actually getting something out of it. It's not like they're promising, oh, if you shoot this for free, the next time we'll pay you. No, that's not the same thing. This is a situation where you're volunteering, you're looking for opportunity, you're looking for subjects. You can even do your own personal projects, which again is something I'm going to get into in a lot more detail in another episode. But the point is, you want to look for opportunities to shoot, and you want to be shooting over and over and over again. The second aspect of this is what I refer to as active seeing. In other words, you want to be taking pictures whether you have a camera with you or not. Yeah, we all have iPhones with us, and that's great, but I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is learning to train yourself to see photos. Look for light, look for shapes, look for things that you wouldn't normally see. The point is, you want to look for opportunities. You want to look for photographs. You're driving down the road, although if I'm in front of you, you may not want to do that. But you want to look for opportunities to photograph things, walking on the beach, or just sitting in your house, or looking out the front door, the window, or something like that. Learn to see. So here's an example I'll give you. This photo I'm going to show you right now is one that my wife took. Now, my wife's not a photographer, but she saw this photo in her office and pulled out her iPhone and took a picture of it and sent it to me. Now, this was an example of where she saw the light, she saw the shape, she saw the light coming through the blinds, and she took a picture of it. So she's not a photographer, she wasn't carrying a camera around, but she's very good at seeing shapes and light. And this is what I'm trying to get you to do, is to train yourself to look for these kinds of subjects even if you don't have a camera. Okay, tip number 3, start building your network. Photography is all about people. It's about connecting with people and people feeling comfortable in hiring you, and it's not just about your capabilities. They want to know that you're a person that they can work with. So now for me, Advertising's never really worked well for me because I'm an advertising photographer. I do commercial work, magazine work, and corporate work. So for me, in a more B2B environment, advertising has never really worked that well for me. Most of the work I get is through word of mouth and through networking. So you want to start building up your networking. But even if you're a wedding photographer or do portraits, family portraits, things like that, it's still about personal connections. So I would suggest that you start going to BNI meetings or women in business or local chamber, that type of thing. Any place that your potential clients are going to be, that's where you want to start hanging out. And you want to meet these people, and you want to be able to get your story, tell them your story, which is another thing. We'll cover that in another video. But you want to be able to start meeting people and gradually get them to know you, because people are going to buy a service or a product from people they're more familiar with and more comfortable with. Okay, I have one more piece of advice. Before we get to that, I'd like to ask you to please leave a comment, like the video if you think it's helpful for you, and also be sure and subscribe and click the bell so you'll be notified when the next video comes out, which should be in about a week. Now make no mistake about it, photography is a business. We get into it, most of us, because we love either the tools or we love to create. We love seeing our images, we love making images, we love working with people. But it's still a business, and you have to remember that. If you're going to be successful, if you want to make a living at this, it has to be treated as a business. So in future videos, we're going to go into a lot more detail about financing, about taxes, all kinds of things about what it's going to take to run a business, be a photographer, a working photographer, and run this as a business. Now, there's something, again, if you look at this channel, you said one of my favorite sayings is technique trumps technology. Well, what do I mean by that? I mean that it's all about learning the craft. It's all about learning your equipment. It's all about learning the techniques of what it takes to create a photograph. Nowadays, we've become so dependent on technology. You know, cameras that have 51 focus points or even more than that they have all kinds of amazing ISO performance, that they have all kinds of amazing shutter speed, frame rates, all this kind of stuff. But what I want you to remember is that sometimes that can fail. Sometimes you get in a situation where you have to think on your feet. I could tell you so many stories about situations where I've had equipment fail, forgot something wasn't working, whatever. I had to come up with a solution for the client without the client worrying about it or even knowing about it in many cases. And that requires understanding the techniques, not just depending on the technology. So here's an example of a famous photo I'm going to describe for you, and I'm going to tell you about this. And this is an example where technique certainly trumped technology. Okay, this photo is a famous photo by Steve Curry. It was shot on film. Obviously, it was shot on Kodachrome 64. Now think about that for a second. It was shot on ASA, at the time they called it ASA, ISO 64. When was the last time you shot a photograph on ISO 64? And even if you did, would have had plenty of lighting, but you couldn't push it, and so you were stuck with that. Every frame had to be shot at ISO 64. He photographed this with a Nikon FM2 camera. Now, Nikon FM2 is not the most sophisticated camera. It's not fancy. It's not even the high-end camera. But it's all manual. It's all manual focus. It's 1 frame per second, right? Or as many times as you can crank the shutter. The winder is how many frames you're going to get. It doesn't have it doesn't have 1,000 focus points. It has 1 focus point. In fact, it has what's called a split level finder in it. And the lens he was using was a manual lens. Didn't even have auto aperture. It was a completely manual lens. It was a 105 f2.5 lens. Now, the interesting thing about this photo is it was photographed in December of 1984 in a refugee camp in Pakistan. And here's the great thing about it. This image was named the most recognized photo in history of the National Geographic. So how would you like to take in that picture not having all the fancy stuff that we do now, but taking with a manual camera, film camera, 1 or 2 frames, manual focus. That is what it's all about. It's learning your technique and then using the technology to help you, but not depending on the technology. If you don't learn the basics, what happens is when you get into trouble, then you don't know how to solve a problem. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. We're got another one coming up soon. We're gonna got a lot more going on, a lot of stuff. We're gonna do some reviews, and we're gonna be doing possibly some interviews with some other people in the industry that I think you'll find interesting. So be sure and check back next week. Again, click the subscribe button and the bell, and please leave a comment. See you next time. Hi, I'm Lee Love. If this Hi, I'm Lee Love. If this is your Hi, I'm Lee Love. Hi, I'm Lee Love. If this Hi, I'm Lee Love. If this Hi, I'm